your renal blood flow and its characteristics. Means how kidney does get supply of its blood and what are the characteristics, how this renal blood flow is peculiar to the kidney. As we know that kidney is a organ that remove all the waste product from the blood and it filtered or clear or purify the blood from the waste product of metabolism. So that's why this we have to understand the renal blood flow and its characteristics. So see how does kidney gets blood supply. Each and every kidney gets its renal artery. So there is one renal artery for each kidney. So there, we have two kidneys. So there are two renal arteries. These renal arteries are direct branch from the aorta. So after originating from the aorta, this renal artery divides into a number of lobular arteries at the hilum of the kidney. So suppose if here it is a abdominal aorta. So from here the renal artery will originate to the left kidney and one renal artery will originate to the right kidney. After emerging from the aorta, this renal artery enter through the hilum of the kidney. Suppose if here it is a hilum, then this renal artery enter into the hilum of the kidney, and here in the hilum, this renal artery will divide into the lobular arteries. I am saying lobular arteries. Clear? So from after entering from the hilum, this renal artery divides into the lobular artery. So one of each pyramid. So each pyramid gets one lobular artery supply. So from here, this renal artery will enter as the lobular artery, and each and every lobular artery will go to the one pyramid. Will go to the one pyramid. After getting entry into the pyramid, this lobular artery divide into two or more interlobar arteries. The lobular artery will divide into two or more interlobar arteries. See here, this arterial arrangement is again uh, progressing in the form of dividation in its branches. Likewise, that respiratory system, the trachea and bronchi were there. They are subsequently dividing. They were subsequently dividing to reach at the last of alveoli. Likewise, that here in the kidney, these artery after entering the renal artery via the hilum of the kidney it divide into the lobular artery and then lobular artery divide into the interlobar arteries. Clear? So this is the interlobar artery that present in the pyramid of the kidney. This interlobar artery ascend into the renal column. No, the renal column are the part of cortex. So this interlobar artery means the artery that is present between the two lobes of kidney. And what are the lobes? Lobe are nothing but the this pyramid, medullary part of the pyramid and covering of this pyramid will called as one lobe of kidney. So the artery that is present between these two lobes of the kidney is the interlobar arteries. So that ascend or that progress into the this renal column of the cortex and it reaches toward the surface of the kidney. So reaching the level of the base of the pyramid. So this interlobar artery after reaching at the level of base of the pyramid, this is the base of the pyramid, this is the apex of the pyramid. So after reaching at the level of base of the pyramid, this interlobar artery divide into the arcuate artery. So one arcuate artery to this side, one arcuate artery to this side, and suppose any other lobe pyramid is here, so it will again progress as the arcuate artery from here at the level of base of the pyramid. What is this arcuate artery? Arcuate artery run at right angle to the interlobar artery. Okay. They lie parallel to the renal pyramids. This is the base of the renal pyramids, or they lie parallel to the surface of the kidney. So at the junction of pyramid and cortex, this arcuate artery progress in the renal content or in the renal tissues. So from here, this interlobar artery perpendicular to or at the right angle to the interlobar artery at the level of base of pyramid, arcuate artery will originate, and this arcuate artery run parallel to the surface of the kidney. So this is the arcuate artery of the kidney. What happened to this arcuate artery again? This arcuate artery gives a series of interlobular arteries. So these arteries are interlobular arteries. This arcuate artery gives a series of interlobular artery. This was the interlobar artery, and these are the interlobular arteries. So this arcuate artery will give series of interlobular arteries. And what are these interlobular arteries? They run through the cortex at right angle to the renal surface to end in subcapsular plexus. So from here arcuate artery, this perpendicular to this arcuate artery, this interlobular artery originate, run toward the surface of the kidney, and they form a plexus just beneath the surface of the kidney. All the interlobular arteries combine each other and form a plexus just beneath the capsule of the kidney or just beneath the surface of the kidney. So these are the interlobular arteries. The second thing, it has been held that interlobular arteries divide the renal cortex into small lobules. So when they run from here to here, they penetrate the renal cortex and divide this renal cortex into the lobules. That's why these are called as the interlobular artery, because these arteries are present in between the two lobules, not the lobes. Lobes are here. So that is the interlobar artery. These are the interlobular artery because they divide the cortex into the small lobules. Clear? And each interlobular artery gives off a series of afferent arteriole. As we had discussed earlier, what are the afferent arteriole? Afferent arteriole are the branches of arteries that enter into the glomeruli. So from where afferent arteriole originate? Afferent arteriole originate from these interlobular arteries. So each interlobular artery gives progress as the afferent arteriole to the glomeruli. So from one interlobular artery there are so many afferent arteriole to the glomeruli. Now what this afferent arteriole will do, so each afferent arteriole enters the Bowman's capsule and divide into the rounded tuft that we called as the glomeruli. As we had mentioned earlier, this capillary network has special features owing with retention of plasma protein and blood capillaries. We had discussed earlier the glomerular basement membrane that has a special feature, and this capillary wall also has the special feature to filtrate the blood. So this afferent arteriole enter into the glomeruli. So this is the most important artery, afferent arteriole that is basically originate from this interlobular artery, that is the perpendicular branch of the arcuate artery. So this is the blood supply to the kidney, and after that this interlobular artery run perpendicular into the cortex. They divide the cortex into small lobules and form the capillary plexus just beneath the surface of the kidney. Clear? So this was the arterial arrangement of blood supply to the kidney. Then what will happen from here? This afferent arteriole enter into the glomeruli, and all these afferent arteriole, after forming the glomeruli, they reunite again and comes out as the efferent arteriole. And leaving the glomeruli, two types of nephron exhibit different behavior. So this efferent arteriole, when it leaves the glomeruli, there are two types of different nephron. One is the cortical nephron and one are the juxtamedullary nephron. And after emerging as efferent arteriole, this efferent arteriole behave in different way. to the cortical nephron and behave in different way to the juxtamedullary nephron. We had discussed earlier what are the difference between the cortical nephron and juxtamedullary nephron. Juxtamedullary nephron, this efferent arteriole forms the vasa recta, while in cortical nephron this forms only the peritubular network. We have discussed it earlier very well. So this efferent arteriole from here it run as the either vasa recta and peritubular network to the juxtamedullary nephron, or to the cortical nephron it act as the peritubular network. After forming the peritubular network and vasa recta, it again reunite and progress as the renal venules. So the pattern of renal venous system is similar to that found in the end arterial system, except for the presence of multiple anastomosis between the veins at all levels of the venous circulation. So if you see the next slide, see here, this is the afferent arteriole that comes from the interlobular artery, that comes actually from the arcuate artery. So this is the afferent arteriole enter uh, into the glomeruli, and after that it emerges as the efferent arteriole. See here, this is the efferent arteriole. So in the this medullary nephron, it forms the vasa recta as the descending limb of this efferent arteriole, that is the descending vasa recta, and around the loop of Henle again it forms parallel arrangement around the ascending limb of loop of Henle as the ascending vasa recta, and finally they drain either into the arcuate vein or into the interlobular vein, while the peritubular capillary plexus that was again formed by the efferent part of cortical nephron, you can say this capillary plexus around the PCT and DCT, that is formed by the again efferent arteriole. Efferent arteriole forms the capillary network around the PCT, proximal convoluted tubule around the DCT, that is called the peritubular network. This peritubular network drain into the interlobar vein, while this vasa recta forming the plexus parallel to the descending limb of loop of Henle, ascending limb of loop of Henle, and in between capillary network, in between this limb of loop of Henle, 1, 2, 3, this capillary network. After forming these kind of arrangement, these blood vessels or efferent arteriole from the juxtamedullary nephron drain into the arcuate vein directly or into the interlobular vein, and from here these vein or renal vein progress comes out as the final as the renal vein, and the branches are similar like that the blood supply of artery to the kidney. Likewise, that here it is the arcuate vein, then it will form the interlobar vein, then it will comes out from the renal papilla as renal vein. So likewise there. So this is the venous arrangement, how this nephron uh, venous circulation is there. So artery as the afferent artery, this is the arterial circulation. It enter as the afferent artery into the glomeruli, and after that forming the glomeruli, this artery again come back as the efferent arteriole, not as the vein. It come back out of this glomeruli as the efferent arteriole and form the two type of network around the PCT and DCT. They form the peritubular network or peritubular capillary plexus that then drain into the interlobular vein, and at the juxtamedullary nephron they form the vasa recta as descending limb of vasa recta, ascending limb of vasa recta around the loop of Henle, and finally drain into the arcuate vein, and from arcuate vein into the interlobar vein, and then again to the renal vein. So that is the blood supply to the kidney. And how does kidney or nephron gets blood supply, and how does this blood recollect from the nephron and comes out via the renal hilum. So that is the efferent artery of cortical and juxtamedullary nephron. You see very well, these are the cortical nephron, these are the juxtamedullary nephron, and efferent artery behave in different manner in the cortical nephron and juxtamedullary nephron. In juxtamedullary nephron, it forms the vasa recta and pituitary capillary network, while in cortical nephron, it forms only the peritubular network around the PCT and TCT, and it drain into the interlobular vein and it drain into the arcuate vein. That is the difference between the different artery of cortical and juxtamedullary nephron. And this vasorectal arrangement is very much important because it helps in concentrating the urine. It helps in concentrating the urine, we will see later on. So that is the arterial arrangement or blood supply arrangement to the kidney. Now come to the what are the characteristics of the renal blood flow. So if we come to the characteristics of a renal blood flow, then you have to remember that in basal conditions, approximately this kidney gets blood supply around 1200 ml per minute. That is around 400 ml per 100 gram of kidney tissue per minute. And this blood supply is very high as you compare with the other organ. Like if you compare to the coronary blood flow, kidney gets around 400 ml per 100 gram of tissue per minute. That is the blood supply to the kidney tissue, 400 ml per 100 gram of kidney tissue per minute. If we compare with the coronary blood flow, we think that heart has to get maximum blood supply, but it's not like that. Kidney gets around 400 ml per 100 gram of kidney tissue per minute, while the coronary blood or coronary tissue receives the blood supply only 80 ml per 100 gram of coronary tissue per minute. If we see to the brain, it gets blood supply around 55 ml per 100 gram per minute. If we see to the skeletal muscle receives blood supply only 4 ml per 100 gram per minute. So if we see and compare the blood supply to the kidney, how much blood supply the kidney tissue receives. So the kidney receives around 1200 ml of blood per minute. Okay, if we come to the per 100 gram of the tissue, then kidney receives around 400 ml per 100 gram of kidney tissue per minute. While if we compare this parameter to the other organs like from coronary supply, the coronary tissues get only 80 ml of the blood to its per 100 gram of tissue per minute. Likewise, that if we compare this data with the brain, brain are getting only 55 ml per 100 gram of brain tissue per minute. If we compare to the skeletal muscles are actually the large organs to our body. So skeletal muscles, if you compare with the body weight, so skeletal muscles has a much portion of your body weight, and it receives only 4 ml per 100 gram of skeletal muscle tissue per minute. So see here, kidney as a whole is receiving 1200 ml per minute. यानी मतलब एक मिनट में 1200 ml blood supply is going to the kidney. If we talk about the per 100 gram of the tissue, then kidney receives 400 ml per minute for per 100 gram of kidney tissue, while the heart receives only 80 ml for per 100 gram of its tissue per minute. Brain receives 55 ml. So see here, the kidney is highly perfused organ. The kidney is highly perfused organ, means maximum blood supply at the basal level is reaching to our kidney. And why it is important? Because we need the metabolic waste product has to excrete out, has to remove out from our body. That's why kidney receives maximum perfusion. So that is the concept of the renal blood flow. From here, the concept of renal blood flow originates. So renal blood flow, if you compare, it is around, if you compare the renal blood flow, then it is around 20% of, if you compare the renal blood flow, it is around 20% of total cardiac output. How much it is? It is around, it is around 20% of total cardiac output. See, this is around 20% of total cardiac output. Clear? While if we compare with the body weight, kidney form only 0.5% of your total body weight. So if we compare in body weight, the kidney is a very small organ in comparison to our body weight, but it gets the 20% of total cardiac output. So see, the kidney receives a very much blood supply to its tissues. So it is highly perfused organ. It is highly perfused organ. So renal blood flow is very much high. So why we need this high perfusion to the kidney? Because we have to remove out as soon as possible all metabolic waste product from our body. And other characteristic of this renal blood flow is that this renal blood flow is directly proportional to the pressure difference between the renal artery and renal vein. We had discussed earlier, this is the afferent artery, and from here this is the afferent artery, and from here this is the afferent vein. So whatever may be the pressure difference in between these afferent artery and the renal vein, that will be responsible for the perfusion of the kidney. So because the efferent arteriole and interlobular arteries are the major resistance vessel in the kidney to determine the renal vascular resistance also. So see here, these are the very long vessels, and the diameter of these vessels is very minute. So this renal perfusion is also depend on the resistance that are provided by these vessels. So this is the characteristic of this renal blood flow, that renal or kidney tissues are highly perfused organ. And if we see, if we go to the change in blood pressure, so whenever there is a change in blood pressure, the renal kidney blood flow or renal or kidney blood flow is affect very minute quantity for a wide range of disturbance in blood pressure. So during the exercise, what happens? Sympathetic tone to the renal vessels increases and sends all renal blood flow to the skeletal muscle. So when we go for the exercise, then sympathetic stimulation will occur, and this renal blood flow will shift toward the skeletal muscles. So this is at the rest. At the rest, highly perfused organ will be your kidney. What about the oxygen consumption to the kidney? If we see the oxygen consumption to the kidney, so renal oxygen consumption is approximately 6 ml per 100 gram of a renal tissue in a minute. So renal tissue consume only 6 ml of oxygen for its per 100 gram of renal tissue in a minute, and it is a very high, being only second to heart. Because if we compare it with the heart, then heart tissue consume 8 ml per 100 gram of tissue per minute. So this is the oxygen consumption in heart, and this is the oxygen consumption in renal tissues. So renal tissues oxygen consumption is second to the heart. What about the arteriovenous difference of the blood? Arteriovenous difference is smallest in the kidney. Arteriovenous oxygen difference. If we compare the arteriovenous oxygen difference in the kidney, then it is the smallest. And it is the smallest. If we see this slide, see this arteriovenous oxygen difference in major organ system of the body. If we go to the kidney, the arterial oxygen content is 19 ml per 100 gram of the tissue. For the 19 ml per deciliter, and in the venous blood of the kidney it is around 17.5 ml percent. If we calculate the arterial and venous difference of oxygen, then it is only then it is 1.5 ml percent. Means here there is no change of oxygen content of artery to the vein. It means this oxygen is uh, very lessly utilized for the metabolic activity in the kidney. While in the heart, see here arterial oxygen content 19, while in venous blood, if we take the sample, the oxygen content is 8. So arteriovenous oxygen difference is huge. It means huge amount of oxygen is consuming in the heart, huge amount of oxygen is consuming in the brain, in the whole body again. But oxygen consumption for the metabolic activity in the kidney is very less. So that is the arteriovenous oxygen difference of the kidney. So what it signifies? It signifies that oxygen consumption in the kidney is directly proportional to the renal blood flow, and arteriovenous oxygen difference does not change in spite of massive alteration in the blood flow. Clear? Uh, it's a very complicated thing actually. But you have to remember that oxygen consumption in the kidney is directly proportional to the renal blood flow. Oxygen consumption in the kidney is not proportional to the metabolic demand of the kidney. You can say in another way. It is directly proportional to the renal blood flow. If renal blood flow is increased to the kidney, then oxygen consumption to the kidney will increase. While in other organs, if blood flow requirement of the organ is increased, then blood flow to the organ will increase, and then oxygen consumption of these organ will increase. But here the oxygen consumption of the kidney does not depend on the metabolic activity of the kidney. It actually depends on the renal blood flow. Renal blood flow if increased, then oxygen consumption in the kidney will increase. So here the perfusion respond in a different way to the kidney rather than other organs. Clear? So see here what are the basic difference in determinants of renal blood flow to the muscular blood flow. If we see in the muscular blood, what will happen? Muscular blood flow will increase or decrease to maintain a constant oxygen. Clear? Muscular blood flow changes according to oxygen demand. If we go to the exercise, oxygen demand will increase in the muscular tissue and muscular blood flow will increase. While what happening in the renal blood flow is regulated to maintain a constant GFR. Filtration, we have to maintain the filtration in the kidney, and according to that renal blood flow is changing. Oxygen consumption changes with GFR. If GFR or filtration, we will see later on what is the GFR. GFR is the glomerular filtration rate. Whenever there is filtration increased in the kidney, it will change the renal blood flow. It will change the renal blood flow. Here the oxygen demand is changing the muscular blood flow, While in the kidney, this is the GFR. Filtration is increased, then renal blood flow is increased. Other point, when oxygen consumption increases, the blood flow increases in excess of the requirement, as AB difference is false, because here the demand of oxygen is increasing, so blood flow is increasing. So blood flow is increasing in excess amount. So more and more blood flow will uh, enhance will reduce the difference between the artery and venous oxygen level. While in the what happening in the kidney tissues, oxygen consumption parallel to the change in renal blood flow. So hence difference remain constant despite marked change in renal blood flow, because here this oxygen is not consuming in metabolic activity. So this AB oxygen difference remains constant for the renal blood flow, but here this difference gets reduced. Clear? So that is the basic difference between the renal blood flow and the blood flow to the other organs. So if we come to the intrarenal distribution of the blood flow, then you have to remember that the 90% of the blood distributed to the cortex of the kidney, while only 10% of the blood provides supply to the medulla of the kidney. In that 10%, 9% supply the outer medulla of the kidney and only 1% supply the inner medulla of the kidney. And what is the importance of this blood supply, different blood supply to the kidney? Is that this part involved in excretion of the metabolic waste product. So this uh, gets the high blood supply. This part, because here are the only cortical nephrons are there. So this part of the kidney receives the high blood supply. Why in the medulla there is juxtamedullary nephrons only that are only 15%, and these part of the nephron involved in the concentration of the urine. That's why this part should have less blood supply or less quantity of the blood. That's why this part receives 90% of the blood, this part receives 10% of the blood, and innermost part of the medulla receives only 1% of the total blood supply to the kidney. Because of less blood supply to the kidney, there is low perfusion of the medulla. Less blood supply to the medulla in comparison to the cortex, there is low perfusion of the medulla, and this low perfusion of the medulla is important in concentrating the urine mechanism. Now, how does this renal blood flow is regulated? So, relationship between the arterial resistance and renal blood flow and glomerular filtration rate. So, how does this renal blood flow will regulate it? So, this renal blood flow can regulate it by auto-regulation mechanism. How does this auto-regulation mechanism work? See, this is the afferent arteriole, this is the part of glomerulus, and this is the efferent arteriole. Suppose if we constrict, or if the diameter of afferent arteriole will get reduced, so what will happen? Blood supply to the glomeruli will get reduced. So hydrostatic pressure in the glomeruli will get reduced. If blood supply is reduced, then renal blood flow to the kidney will reduce, because incoming is very narrow via the afferent arteriole. So if this hydrostatic pressure is removed, renal blood flow is reduced, then GFR or filtration from this glomerular membrane will get reduced. We will see later on how does this glomerular filtration occur. So that is the regulation in the kidney blood supply. Afferent arteriole constrict, so all the things will get reduced. Hydrostatic pressure will reduce, renal blood flow will reduce, GFR will reduce. What happens to the next condition? If suppose this afferent arteriole get dilated, diameter of this afferent arteriole will get increased. So what will happen? The blood from renal artery to the afferent arteriole is increased. So amount of blood is increased. So renal blood flow will increase. If renal blood flow is increased, so what will happen? Hydrostatic pressure in this glomeruli will increase. If hydrostatic pressure in the glomeruli is increased, it will push the more and more filtrate out of the glomeruli. So GFR or glomerular filtration rate is increased. So see again how in response to the change in diameter of afferent arteriole, this GFR or renal blood flow is changing in the kidney. Now come to the third condition. If suppose this afferent arteriole diameter are constant, but efferent arteriole diameter is reduced or efferent arteriole gets constricted. So what will happen? The blood supply to the kidney will reduce. Why will reduce? Because there is a obstruction after this glomeruli. So blood will move from here to here without any obstruction, but it will feel the obstruction here. So because of that, subsequent column of blood will not enter or will enter with difficulty in this area of the glomeruli. So renal blood flow will reduce. What happened to this hydrostatic pressure? Suppose this is the pressure of the blood column. So if we constrict here, so pressure in this loop will increase. So hydrostatic pressure will increase. Suppose you constrict a pipe of water at the exit of this pipe. If you constrict the pipe, so what will happen? Pressure in this water pipe, in that water pipe will increase and water will move with a maximum velocity. Likewise that if we constrict here the exit point of this loop, if we constrict, so what will happen? The blood, whatever blood is here, it feels the more pressure and the hydrostatic pressure will increase and it will push more and more filtrate out of the glomeruli. So GFR will increase. So after constriction of efferent arteriole, renal blood flow is decreasing, but hydrostatic pressure is increased. Because of that, GFR is increased. This relationship is very much important. You have to focus there very well and you have to understand it very well. Now, see the fourth condition. If suppose efferent arterial diameter is increased, so what will happen? Whatever blood is coming here, this is going out with ease and it is going out very fast from here. So renal blood flow is increased here. So there is no obstruction here, so hydrostatic pressure will decrease. And because of decrease in hydrostatic pressure, more and more, less, because pressure is not there very much, so the material will not move out or the fluid content will not move out from here, it will go from here with a very fast velocity. So GFR will decrease. So this is the relationship between arterial resistance if the blood feels here, resistance if the blood feels here. So because of the change in the resistance, how does this renal blood flow and this glomerular filtration rate is changing in the kidney? So you can say the renal blood flow can be auto-regulated with the help of the change in resistance in its vasculature of the glomeruli and the peritubular capillaries, vasa recta, etc. So that is the auto-regulation of renal blood flow. So what are the mechanisms to auto-regulation of renal blood flow? One theory is suggested as the myogenic theory. Myogenic mechanism, as you know, the each and every blood vessel has its smooth muscles in the tunica media. These smooth muscles are in phase of contraction. When we stretch or when the diameter of blood vessels will increase, these smooth muscle try to contract. So because of that kind of response, if suppose uh, body blood pressure is increased, systemic blood pressure is increased, so these blood vessels feel more and more stretch on their wall. What will happen? These smooth muscle in the wall of afferent arteriole will start contracting and they decrease the diameter. So suppose total systemic blood pressure is increasing, but renal blood flow is maintaining. Renal blood flow will get reduced or it is maintained to the normal because this afferent arteriole, because of myogenic activity, will get constrict and inhibit the entry of excess blood into the kidney, and it will get auto-regulated. So that is the myogenic mechanism of to control the renal blood flow. Then another important mechanism in that myogenic mechanism, if we see the graph here, auto-regulation of renal blood flow and GFR, how does it happen? If we plot a graph in between the systemic arterial blood pressure on the x-axis and flow rate of the blood in the kidney on the y-axis. So what is going on here? Up to the pressure of 0 to here, suppose 50 or 60 mm of Hg, and this is around 100 mm of Hg. So if the arterial blood pressure is increasing, then what is going on here? Renal blood flow is increasing in a linear line. Okay, this renal blood flow is proportional to the systemic arterial blood pressure. So at this point or at this point, around at 80 mm of Hg, sorry, around at 80 mm of Hg, if we increase the systemic arterial blood pressure, then renal blood flow starts flattening. Means there is a kind of activity to control the renal blood flow. If arterial blood pressure is going to above 80 mm of Hg, so at around 80 mm of Hg, this linear line or this proportional relationship is going to convert it into the flattened line. Means it is not responding to the increase in arterial blood pressure. So at around 80 mm of Hg, the renal blood flow is auto-regulated by the kidney. Starts auto-regulating by the kidney. It will not respond to the arterial change in arterial blood pressure. So from 80 mm of Hg to the around till 200 mm of Hg, the renal blood flow remains constant. It will not change according to change in arterial blood pressure. That's why we can say this renal blood flow can be auto-regulated by the kidney in the range of arterial blood pressure of 80 mm of Hg to the 100 mm of Hg. So remember this range, that arterial blood pressure of 80 mm of Hg to the 200 mm of Hg, the renal blood flow remain constant because of its auto-regulatory mechanism. So if renal blood flow remain constant, then GFR, because hydrostatic pressure will remain also constant. So again this GFR will remain constant. So that is the auto-regulatory mechanism of the renal blood flow or GFR in between the range of 80 mm of Hg to the 200 mm of Hg arterial blood pressure. If arterial blood pressure goes beyond the 200 mm of Hg, then renal blood flow again start to increase with the in proportion to the systemic arterial blood flow. So whenever there is chances of uh, acute hypertension, or you can say massive hypertension is there, so that kind of people get chances of intrarenal hemorrhage. Likewise, that stroke, cerebral hemorrhage, intracranial hemorrhage are there because of hypertension, because of massive hypertension. So if the person's systemic arterial blood pressure goes beyond 200 mm of Hg, there may be chances of intrarenal infarct also, because here the renal blood flow would also increasing, and excess of renal blood flow can respond as the increase urination also. But if the limit exceeds, then there may be chances of intrarenal hemorrhage may be there. So that is the importance of auto-regulation of renal blood flow in response to the systemic arterial blood pressure. Now come to the second mechanism that maintains the renal blood flow. That is the tubuloglomerular feedback mechanism. Tubuloglomerular feedback mechanism means that is a kind of feedback that coming from the tubules to the glomeruli. So that's what is called as tubuloglomerular feedback mechanism. Means a kind of feedback that is coming from tubules, distal tubule, PCT, to the glomeruli and change the renal blood flow. How does it change the renal blood flow? Suppose there is increase in renal artery pressure. Okay, when will it occur? when there is systemic arterial pressure is increased. Suppose in case of hypertension, persistent hypertension is there in a person, or acute hypertension, severe hypertension is there in a person. So what will happen? Due to the raised systemic arterial pressure, there is increased arterial pressure in abdominal aorta, increased arterial pressure in renal artery. Because of increased arterial pressure in renal artery, what will happen? More and more blood will flow into the renal artery, into the afferent arteriole. So more and more hydrostatic pressure will generate into the glomeruli. So more and more glomerular filtration will occur, and more blood will get filtered out of the glomeruli to the Bowman space. So GFR will increase. So more and more solute will come into the Bowman space. So solutes are mainly the sodium chloride, potassium, etc. ions. So sodium chloride concentration in the tubular fluid will get increased. So this sodium chloride concentration in the tubular fluid is sensed by the macula densa cells. We had discussed earlier about the macula densa cells. These are the sensor of change in the sodium chloride concentration. So if in the tubular fluid sodium chloride concentration is increased, then macula densa sense this change and give feedback. Macula densa are present where? Macula densa are present in the DCT, near the DCT, in the DCT near the afferent and efferent arteriole. So the macula densa will sense the sodium chloride has increased because your GFR has increased, because your renal blood flow has increased. So they give feedback mechanism to the afferent arteriole to constrict. So afferent arteriole will get constrict, and what will they do? They decrease the renal blood flow. If the renal blood flow decrease in response to this signal, afferent arterial constriction, to decrease the GFR and decrease the sodium chloride concentration. So these kind of activity occur from the tubular feedback to the glomeruli, and they control the renal blood. Likewise, that if suppose there is vice versa to this phenomena, if there is a decreased renal arterial pressure, we can understand again it in the picture. Nephrons. You can see the picture of nephron here, and I can explain that. Just see, suppose this is the afferent arteriole, and this is the afferent arteriole, and this is the efferent arteriole, and this is the arterial supply to the nephron from here. Suppose the systemic hypertension is there, so pressure in the aorta is increased. So pressure in the afferent arteriole is increased. So pressure in the afferent arteriole is increased. Because of increase in pressure, hydrostatic pressure in this glomeruli will increase. So more and more fluid will come out of the glomeruli, will collect into the Bowman space, and more fluid and more solute will enter into this PCT. From PCT to Henle, more and more solute are coming from here, more and more sodium chloride are coming because increased hydrostatic pressure, increased filtration from here. So this sodium chloride concentration is increased into this thick ascending limb, and finally into the DCT. And here in the DCT there is macula densa, and between the afferent and efferent arteriole. So this macula densa sense the increased concentration of sodium chloride in this channel. So this will give signal to the afferent arteriole that you have to constrict because renal blood flow has increased. So afferent arteriole will get constrict, and it will reduce the renal blood flow. So if change occur from 80 mm of Hg to the 200 mm of Hg, this tubuloglomerular feedback mechanism comes in picture, and they control the renal blood flow to the tissue. So that's how this auto-regulation mechanism is controlled by this tubuloglomerular feedback mechanism. So now here the control of the renal blood flow via the auto-regulation mechanism has completed. Now other kind of control, maybe there may be hormonal regulation to control the renal blood flow. As in other part of controlling mechanism, hormone also influence the renal blood flow and GFR. Hormone like vasoconstrictor, if there is change in effective circulatory volume or hypervolemia is there, then vasoconstrictors are released like norepinephrine, angiotensin II, endothelin. These vasoconstrictors, they do, they constrict the afferent arteriole to decrease the renal blood flow, decrease the GFR. Likewise, that if there is decrease in effective circulatory volume is reduced or hypovolemia occur, in that condition increase in effective circulatory volume occur or hypervolemia is occur, then vasodilators are released like prostaglandin, nitric oxide. So what they do, they increase the diameter of afferent arteriole and increase the renal blood flow and increase the GFR also. See here the prostaglandin is not changing the GFR because actually this mechanism of prostaglandin is different from other vasodilator. This prostaglandin is actually secreted in the hemorrhagic conditions, and what it will do, it dampens down or it reduces down the vasoconstrictor effect of sympathetic nerve and angiotensin II. You can go for detail about the action of prostaglandin, how it controls the RBF and GFR. Likewise, that other vasodilator, bradykinin, ANP, glucocorticoids, dopamine, histamines, they all these hormones have their effective, their different kind of mechanism to control the renal blood flow, to control the GFR via the vasodilatory mechanism. So these are the hormonal control of RBF and GBF. So this was the hormonal regulation to control the renal blood flow. Likewise, that there is nervous regulation is also there. There is sympathetic supply to the afferent and efferent arteriole from T4 to L2 in intervertebral level or spinal cord segment. So this splanchnic supply can control the diameter of afferent and efferent arteriole, and they control in that fashion the blood supply to the kidney. But this nervous regulation is in normal circulatory condition, the sympathetic tone is minimum. In mild to moderate stimulation, sympathetic nerve has mild effect on renal blood flow and GBF, while in strong acute stimulation of sympathetic nerve occur, then it causes marked fall in renal blood flow, around 10 to 30% of normal, because it causes marked constriction of afferent arteriole and reduce the renal blood flow. So that is the nervous regulation. So in normal condition, nervous regulation is not common picture for the kidney. So that is a part about the renal blood flow or control of blood circulation to the kidney.